Single Dad's heartfelt wish exposed a shocking truth that transformed a millionaire's perspective. Mark stood in the grungy, dim light of his auto shop, his hands greasy and calloused, a mundane testament to the daily grind of survival. The reality of his routine pressed down on him like a lead weight. Each engine he repaired echoed the muffled cries of his heart, a constant reminder of the dreams shattered when his wife, Sophia, succumbed to cancer. The sound of tools clanging drew his attention away from the self-loathing creeping in. He had 2 children to raise, yet how could he secure a proper future for them when every dollar earned seemed to drift further from that vision? Each repair bill was a sharp jab of reality that threatened to knock the wind out of him. The mounting bills loomed like dark clouds. Was he failing them? The thoughts raced through his mind relentlessly, thoughts of desperation battling against flickers of hope. As he wiped his brow, he couldn't shake the guilt layered beneath his steely exterior. What kind of father was he trying to be, doing everything he could, but still feeling hollow inside? The pressure was relentless. That Tuesday felt different, when Ethan, a man drenched in the aroma of privilege, strolled in. Mark's heart sank at the sight of designer clothes that seemed to mock the dirt and rust of his world. There was an arrogance in Ethan's casual demeanor, a dismissiveness that rubbed Mark the wrong way. He immediately felt defensive, but also strangely intrigued by this man who was so far removed from the humble existence he endured. "Can you fix my car?" Ethan asked, his voice echoing the enviable confidence of someone who was used to getting what he wanted. It stung. Mark clenched his jaw, swirling a cocktail of pride and indignation. "Of course," he managed, masking the internal battle waging within him. Why was it so hard to accept that this man didn't understand the depth behind the work that he loved, the sheer grit it took just to keep the doors open? As the 2 men fell into a rhythm of repair, Mark felt a stirring urge to share more than just the technical specifics. The emotional weight of his life began seeping through the cracks. He told Ethan about the dreams he once shared with Sophia, the artistic aspirations that faded as time stretched out like an unwelcome shadow. A part of him questioned, was he regarded as inferior to this man's carefully curated world? Before Mark could reel himself back, Ethan's gaze softened. Just as he thought he could lean into this shared space, Ethan abruptly cut through the atmosphere by mentioning an art gallery in New York, a place showcasing emerging artists. Mark's heart raced, memories surging like tidal waves. Eager to share Sophia's brilliance, but haunted by the fear of exposure, he hesitated. Would he lay bare the remnants of his wife's talent, vulnerable yet hopeful, risking the rejection of his heart's most cherished possession? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now, let's continue. In that pulsing moment, just as Ethan started to see beyond the surface, Mark felt a spark of connection morph into a chasm of doubt. What if this venture tarnished Sophia's memory? The prospect of being uplifted or falling deeper into despair muddled his thoughts like oil on water. He clenched his fists, straddling the line between aspiration and apprehension. Just then, a phone call sliced through the tension like a knife. The voice on the other end held a secret from the past, and Mark felt the ground beneath him crumble, leaving him grasping for a definition of success he once wore like armor, now feeling more like a fragile cage. Would he break free, or was this the beginning of an unraveling he'd never wanted? The tension lingered in the air as Mark ended the call, his heart racing while the remnants of the conversation echoed through his mind. The voice, a distant memory laced with regret and a hint of unresolved tension, had offered a lifeline to the past he thought he could leave behind. It had given him a single name, a veiled promise that memories long buried could rise again. He focused on Ethan, who was adjusting his posture as the car repair drew closer to completion. Mark took a breath, trying to mold the whirlwind of emotions into something manageable. Unspoken words tumbled through his mind. Should he tell Ethan the truth about Sophia's art, about his dreams, about how every part of his life felt like a tarnished reflection of what could have been? A brief silence enveloped them, broken only by the sound of tools. It was as if Ethan sensed a shift in Mark. "You seem a little distracted," Ethan remarked, an eyebrow raised in curiosity. The question lingered, pulling at Mark's consciousness like a fishing line reeling in a reluctant catch. Mark turned slightly, unwilling to reveal the storm brewing inside. "Just life, he muttered, trying to dismiss the weighty cloud of uncertainty. Yet he couldn't shake it off. It was there, gnawing at him like a dog with a bone, a reminder that he was at a crossroads. Then it hit him. If tomorrow was uncertain, he needed to confront something deeper than just the financial turmoil. He had been so focused on surviving, on the daily mechanics of fatherhood and running an auto shop, that he had forgotten who he used to be before loss reshaped him. An artist at heart, he had buried those threads beneath layers of grief and responsibility. "I'll be right back," he muttered to Ethan, breaking the spell as he stepped outside the garage. The cool air hit his face, sharp and invigorating. Mark leaned against the weathered siding of the building, the familiar scent of oil and metal faintly mixing with the briskness of the evening air. His thoughts spiraled in on themselves. Who was sending him this message? What did they know? And more importantly, what did he truly want? Mark felt a growing sense of determination, threading through his uncertainty, pushing him to anchor himself to a decision. Either he could shrink back into fear, or he could rise to meet whatever was waiting for him. As he stood there, the familiar knot of anxiety began to unravel, revealing something deeper. It wasn't just about Sophia anymore. It was about his own growth, his own identity. Each step he had taken as a father, every sacrifice made to keep life running smoothly, had eroded parts of him that desperately wanted to emerge. He had been so focused on survival that the artist in him had been buried under pragmatism and routine. What if I met this person? What if it leads to something? The edge of hope pressed against his heart. He pictured Sophia's vibrant art, the colors swirling into stories that could touch lives. It was about her legacy, yes, but it was also about rediscovering a part of himself that had dimmed. Mark inhaled deeply, buoyed by an unexpected resolve. "I can do this." He pulled out his phone and replied, the words spilling out with an urgency that surprised him. Where and when? He sent the message and returned to the garage where Ethan was packing up. The conversation resumed, but Mark felt a simmer of anticipation underlying every exchange. He fired off questions about the art scene, letting his curiosity cascade forth. In Ethan's vibrant enthusiasm, Mark found snippets of encouragement, promising routes towards showcasing Sophia's work. The more they talked, the more he realized that this endeavor, bringing Sophia's art into the light, was tethered to reclaiming his own passion. He remembered the evening light flooding their living room, each brushstroke across canvas bringing them closer together. Painting had been their shared language. Would sharing her art tie him back to that intimacy, or would it serve as a dagger reminding him of the absence? As the sun dipped below the horizon, Mark felt the weight of that impending meeting. There was no going back. He was ready to confront the truth about Sophia, about his feelings, about the hollowness that had gnawed at his existence. After Ethan left for the night, Mark cleared the workbench, aligning tools with sharp precision. Quiet moments like this fed his mind, allowing clarity to weave through the chaos. He realized he had a choice: to face whatever truths waited for him, or let fear continue to dictate his narrative. His phone buzzed again, and he glanced at it. Another message from the unknown sender. "Meet me at the old studio." "We need to talk." Panic rippled through him, chasing the earlier resolve. The old studio was a place loaded with memories, both beautiful and heart-wrenching. He licked his lips, tasting the bittersweet urgency in the air. Could this be the beginning of grappling with the past, finally confronting the threads that tied him to a life no longer lived? Mark looked at the late-hour sky, a deep canvas of stars beginning to twinkle. There was no more hiding, no more silencing the artist within. He had to confront what was, to emerge into what could be. As he prepared to leave, a fear dampened his resolve. What if the truth was darker than he imagined? What if it shattered the remnants of his controlled life? He had stepped onto a path of uncertainty, but the need to discover who he still could be propelled him forward, ready to face whatever awaited. In that moment, Mark understood. His personal revolution had begun, and the journey would expose not only the truth of Sophia, but the depth of his own spirit. With a final glance at the fading light of day, he headed toward the old studio, heart pounding with anticipation and dread, ready to uncover the hidden depths of his life and the life they had built together. He was on the verge of revelation, and the stakes had never been higher. Would he find peace, or would turmoil follow him there? Mark's footsteps echoed against the cracked pavement as he approached the old studio, each step fueled by a blend of dread and anticipation. The air was thick with memory, each breath pulling him back to the days spent among brushes and canvases, to the laughter and discussions that had once colored his life. Yet, this was not merely a walk down memory lane, it was a confrontation. Stepping inside, he felt the coolness of the air wrapping around him, almost like an embrace from the past. Dust motes floated lazily in the dim light, and for a moment the world outside faded away. The walls were blank now, stripped of the art that had previously ignited inspiration. A hollow space lingered in his chest at the sight. "Mark!" A voice sliced through the silence, warm yet quivering, weaving an intimate bond through the stillness. He turned to see her, Charlotte, the woman behind the message, the one who had stirred the embers of his buried creativity. His heart raced. "Charlotte," he said, struggling to keep his tone steady as feelings of confusion and hope danced in the air around them. "You wanted to talk?" "About Sophia," she replied, her eyes intense yet soft, revealing the shared grief that lingered between them like a thick fog. Mark felt that familiar tightness in his throat. "I didn't know if you'd come." "Neither did I," he admitted, stepping further into the studio. "But here I am." "Thank you for coming. She meant so much to both of us." Her voice trembled as she walked toward a forgotten easel, dusting it off with delicate fingers. "I wanted to share something with you. Something I found after." As Charlotte began to recount her memories of Sophia intertwined with the art, Mark realized he was standing on the edge of rediscovery. The artist inside him awoke, fueling a tumultuous grasp at newfound clarity. What lay in the depths of Sophia's expression would ultimately determine his own path forward. But as each revelation unfolded, Mark sensed a new truth brewing. The depth of the journey ahead was not solely about the memories of a lost love, but the emergence of a life yet to be defined. The answers awaited, but they were bound to reveal much more than he anticipated. What awaited him could shake the very foundations of what he believed. With a determined glance at Charlotte, he took a deep breath, ready for the truths that lay ahead, aware that the choices made here would shape more than just his past. They would redefine his future as well. What other surprises awaited in the vibrant depths of Sophia's world? As Charlotte's voice wove through the layers of Sophia's artworks, Mark grappled with the tide of emotions crashing over him. Each story, intertwined with the strokes of paint, seemed to mimic the narrative of his own life. Vivid, chaotic, yet essential. The familiarity tugged at him. This process of unearthing Sophia's spirit was highlighting his own buried aspirations, long smothered under the weight of grief and inaction. Her use of color here, Charlotte said, pointing to an abstract explosion of blues and yellows, was a reflection of her struggle. She wanted to break free, Mark, and I think she used her art as a way to do that. Mark's gaze fixated on the canvas. Was this desire for liberation something he'd lost, stifled under responsibility and fear? He remembered the vibrant conversations with Sophia, how she had imagined a life built on her art, a world where creativity flourished unrestrained. He swallowed hard. I didn't know that about her. I thought she was content. Charlotte nodded, her expression turning solemn. We often wear masks, especially among those we love. I think Sophia was ready to show her true self, but something held her back. A flicker of understanding ignited within Mark. He recognized this unease. It resonated deeply within him. He had also felt confined by his own fears, such as the fear of failure that had shackled him for years. As Charlotte flipped to another painting, one that seemed a tempest of emotions captured in swirls of dark and light, Mark felt a sudden jolt within himself. The range of feelings in Sophia's work mirrored the internal storm he had been weathering, a whirlpool of doubts and aspirations wrestling for dominion over his life. Perhaps this was not just about mourning her absence, but acknowledging the latent artist he had stashed away. What if I'm not capable of it anymore? Mark's voice barely broke the silence. The vulnerability clawing at him felt simultaneously illuminating and terrifying. Charlotte placed her hand reassuringly on his arm. Sophia believed in you. She always mentioned how you inspired her. Maybe it's time to believe in yourself again. You have her legacy in your hands right now. The words hit hard, sparking an internal confrontation, a fight between his staunch self-doubt and the desire for renewal. Charlotte's conviction seeped into him, reverberating in the recesses of his mind. What if this act of embracing Sophia's art meant reviving his passion for creation? If he could channel Sophia's boldness, what barriers could he dismantle? Could he rise from the ashes of regret and recreate his narrative, transforming grief into artistic dialogue? A sense of urgency swirled around him, underscoring his decision-making process. Previously, his instincts were to retreat in the face of challenges, but perhaps it was time to step boldly into his fear, a radical departure from his past hesitance. Will you help me? His question broke free, tinted with an unexpected determination. Help me understand her art. Help me create again. Could this partnership serve as a vehicle for healing, for discovering not just Sophia's story, but also his untold potential? Charlotte nodded slowly, her eyes shimmering with a mixture of hope and understanding. Absolutely. Let's explore what she left behind together. With that agreement grounded in shared purpose, Mark felt a shift within himself. The edges of his living reality began to blur into something vibrant and alive. They were standing at the threshold of a powerful transformation, the legacy of a shared past entwined with the promise of his rekindled passion. Yet lingering doubts simmered beneath the surface. What concrete steps would he need to take to realize this vision? And as they prepared to delve deeper into Sophia's expressions, Mark recognized a psychological intensity building within him. Where would this journey lead? As he looked at the canvas before him, the urgency solidified into a burning resolve. The next move was pivotal. Could they reach beyond the grief that had bound him and unlock a creative potential he thought he'd lost for good? Just as the prospect of emerging artistry glimmered tantalizingly close, a nagging thought crept in. What if this undertaking exposed not only his artistry, but the long-buried truths about his life? Mark inhaled sharply, keenly aware that the path was fraught with both unearthed beauty and untold challenges. He faced a choice not only about embracing the art left by Sophia, but also about confronting the depths of his being, a battle between his heart and mind. A decision waited on the horizon, one that threatened to fracture his reality or ignite a revolution of self-discovery. The air shifted, charged with anticipation, as Mark and Charlotte prepared to dive into the unknown depths of creation. And what awaited them just beneath the surface remained a mystery yet to be uncovered. Would this exploration redefine not only how he saw the world, but also who he would become? Mark stood before Sophia's art, a swirling mix of colors and emotions, struggling to contain the tumult within him. Each brushstroke seemed to reach out, pulling him deeper into a narrative he hadn't fully acknowledged. It was as though Sophia herself was beckoning him to unearth what had long been buried, his own identity, his aspirations that had crumbled under the weight of obligation. "Let's start here," Charlotte suggested, her tone imbued with a sense of purpose. She gestured toward the canvas before Mark, a chaotic symphony of vibrant hues and dark lines, as if daring him to unravel its secrets. More than ever, he recognized that this endeavor was about more than just grieving. It was about discovery. As Charlotte described her interpretations, he felt like a stranger in his own skin. The emotions Sophia had poured into her work were vibrant, alive, and potent. He couldn't help but resent the years of self-imposed silence that had stifled his voice. "What if I just—" he hesitated, the fear of inadequacy creeping in. "What if I can't connect the way you do?" "You won't know unless you try," she replied, a steady gaze anchoring his uncertainty. "You already have a bond with her work that's deeper than you understand. It's time to reach for that connection." Then came a startling revelation. This was a confrontation with his fear of failure, bred from years of hiding behind responsibilities and expectations. Would he allow the shadows of doubt to dictate the course of this journey? The answer seemed clear, but how to proceed? He realized this wasn't merely an artistic endeavor, it was a claim to his identity. "Okay," Mark said, fortifying himself internally. "Let's start exploring. I might not be an artist like Sophia, but I want to find my own voice." As he stepped closer to the canvas, he felt a flicker of courage ignite within him, an ember of creativity that threatened to burst into flame. Charlotte watched, her expression shifting from encouragement to keen expectation. "Let's create something that embodies both of you, something fresh, something powerful." Mark soaked in her words. Could he really capture his essence intertwined with Sophia's? This new challenge felt like a tightrope walk where one misstep could lead to an overwhelming plunge back into despair. Yet the excitement pulsing within him was equal parts fear and exhilaration. "What medium should I use?" he asked, contemplating the decision with more intensity than he had anticipated. Each choice carried weight, a reflection of his inner conflict. Do I stick to paint or try something more expressive? Charlotte shifted her stance, her enthusiasm infectious. Art is about breaking boundaries, right? Why not explore, mix mediums, let it speak for you? He nodded, the idea resonating in harmony with the turmoil of his thoughts. Maybe embracing ambiguity could help him navigate the uncertainty of his situation, allow him the freedom to explore who he had become. With renewed determination, he began by picking up a brush, the cool wood familiar yet foreign in his hand. As colors blended on the canvas, he poured his heart into each stroke, channeling the sense of liberation he'd glimpsed in Sophia's work. The fear still lingered, but it transformed into a catalyst, a drive to confront his own narrative. However, as they worked, doubts began to swirl again, this time more pronounced. What if he was misinterpreting his struggle? What if he couldn't do justice to Sophia's memory? Each flick of his wrist felt like an unveiling, but were the colors representing his truth or merely smudging over his fears of inadequacy? The tension expanded within him, taut like the strings of a violin waiting to be struck. Swirls of emotion heightened his sensitivity, urging him deeper into the exploration of his past and the potential futures that lay before him. "Mark, what's going on inside your head?" Charlotte's question cut through the intensifying silence, grounding him. He met her gaze, vulnerable yet resolute. "I think I'm beginning to realize this isn't just about art. It's my whole life that I've held back. I'm terrified, and I'm exhilarated." Charlotte's steady nod brought with it a wave of relief and understanding. "Then let those emotions flow into your creation. That's how art and healing truly works." As Mark dipped the brush again, tracing the arc of his own burgeoning identity, anticipation surged through him. This wouldn't be easy, but perhaps the essence of who he was awaited him at the end of this intricate journey through color and self. But as he stepped back to observe the canvas, one startling thought pierced through him. What if this exploration didn't just change how he viewed art, but altered the very fabric of his reality? Could it reveal deep hidden truths that he had long shunned, reshaping his identity in ways he couldn't fathom? The stakes had never felt higher, and as the vibrant colors took shape, Mark understood. He was teetering on the edge, ready to confront whatever lay beneath this tumultuous journey of creation. A choice loomed ahead, one that could redefine everything he thought he knew about himself. The moment hung suspended in the air, the colors on the canvas swirling as if echoing his internal storm. Mark took a breath, his heart racing at the prospect of unveiling more than just paint on a surface. This was about confronting the layers of his past, the unfulfilled dreams, and the quiet resignation he had accepted as his life. As his brush swirled the liquid hues, another realization cut through him. Creating wasn't just about honoring Sophia or her art, it was a reclamation of his own narrative. He needed to step out of the shadows that had blinded him for too long. "Mark, are you ready to dive deeper?" Charlotte's voice came as a gentle nudge, urging him forward, yet it carried an undeniable challenge. He felt the weight of her words, the opportunity to peel back the layers that had buried his identity beneath the weight of duty and expectation. "Yeah," he replied, resolve crystallizing further. "If I'm going to do this, I need to go all in, not just for me, but for Sophia too." The words felt like a vow. The brush became an extension of his being, the colors echoing the chaos within, blending shades of both turmoil and hope. He splashed bold reds alongside calm blues, creating tension on the canvas merely reflective of how he felt. This confrontation was now as much about art as it was about the inner barriers he had constructed. What if the fear wasn't merely a shadow to dismiss, but a guide leading him toward a deeper truth? With steady strokes, he began to shape figures within the chaos, representations of what he had shunned, the relationships he had neglected, the dreams he had muted. Each stroke seemed to pulse with a life of its own, demanding attention. In that throbbing rhythm, he felt his heartbeat synchronize with the art. "Maybe you should talk about what the colors mean to you," Charlotte suggested, her keen eyes watching him dissect his emotions through each movement. Mark paused, considering. "Red, it feels raw, alive, but chaotic. It represents anger, yes, but also love that I've neglected. And blue, it's a longing for peace, a searching." Each hue illuminated something he had almost lost, his ability to express, to feel, to hope. "Keep going," Charlotte encouraged, her presence a steady force beside him. It bolstered him, a camaraderie that felt essential as he navigated his own emotions. As he worked, the boundaries of fear began to dissolve. But a new weight settled in his chest, a pang of shame. Was it truly right to lay bare his emotions this way? Was he being selfish by exploring his pain in the context of her legacy? "Who are you doing this for?" Charlotte's voice broke through again. "This is for you, for Sophia. You don't owe anyone a surface-level representation of your grief. Let the rawness speak." Her reminder stung with truth. "Right," he murmured, apprehension replaced by determination. Bold strokes became louder, and he immersed himself, letting the paint guide him into discovery. Unconsciously, he began layering emotions, layers of fear that right now felt like weights allowing for a new buoyancy, an elevation towards something uncharted. The room felt charged, and the air thickened with possibilities. As he stepped back to survey his creation, the canvas radiated an energy that felt almost foreign, yet alive. Yet beneath the exhilaration lurked an insidious question. Did his journey towards self-actualization come at a cost? Would his pursuit of authenticity push others away? The specter of isolation returned, lurking in the periphery of his thoughts. Charlotte's voice brought him back. "What's coming up for you right now?" He glanced between the vibrant swirls before him and her sincere gaze. "I'm afraid of what I might find if I dig too deep. What if I show this to the world and it's not enough?" Charlotte smiled gently, a steady hand planted on his shoulder. "You won't know unless you take that leap. This is your moment. It's a leap toward vulnerability, which is often the truest strength." Mark exhaled slowly, processing her words. He realized this was more than an art piece. It was a testament to the authenticity he yearned to embrace. Stepping toward the canvas again, he made a bold stroke, marking his determination to face both the beauty and chaos intertwined in his life. But as he worked, another thought nagged at him. What if the unveiling of his truth not only transformed him, but shattered the delicate balance of his reality, forcing him to confront those he had avoided for so long? A confrontation with not just the art community, but with his loved ones whose expectations weighed on him like chains. Mark could feel the intensity flaring. He wasn't just flirting with colors, but facing the uncertain tapestry of his very life. He had begun this journey to honor Sophia's memory, but the aching realization dawned. What if uncovering his true self meant tearing down walls, exposing his vulnerability in terrifyingly public ways? He looked back at the canvas before him, knowing he must now confront not only the emotions swirling within the paint, but also the impending reality of his choices that lay just ahead. An impending conversation that loomed as ominously as it beckoned him toward genuine connection. Mark's heart raced as the brush glided across the canvas, but it wasn't just the act of creation that fueled him. It was the knowledge that he stood on the precipice of something monumental, something that could wrench open the cocoon of his past and cast light upon the shadows he had inhabited for too long. Each stroke was a potential revelation, yet the weight of each decision hung heavily in the air, pressing against his chest. He could feel the tension pulsing between his canvas's vibrant depths, each color a facet of the man he had lost touch with. Mark took a breath, converting endurance into purpose. Would the art signify a farewell to his insecurities, or an invitation for others to peer into his vulnerability? Was he ready to share this raw version of himself? As sweat beaded on his forehead, an increasingly uncomfortable reality encroached upon him. Sharing his art meant exposing not just his grief, but his identity, his failures, aspirations, and the raw wound left by Sophia's absence. There was an underlying fear woven with every burst of creativity, gawning at him like an uninvited guest. "Charlotte, what do you see?" he asked, vulnerability dripping from his tone, unsure if he could handle her insight.
The truth had become a double-edged sword, one that could cut him free from the pain of complacency or slice deeply into the tender spots he had fortified.
She stepped closer, looking intently at his work, her silence stretching uncomfortably. I see passion surrounded by uncertainty. The colors speak of a kind of awakening, but also fear. This isn't just an obelisk to Sophia, it's a statement about you. Mark frowned, the reflection illuminating his own self-doubt. But will anyone see that? Art is subjective, Mark. It's about what you present. The audience will feel your energy, and if you are honest, they will respond. This canvas might spark a conversation that you're terrified to have, but it needs to happen. Don't play safe. The mantra echoed in his mind as fear spiraled into clarity. He remembered the conversations he had avoided with friends, family, and the art community that had applauded Sophia's work. Now, the question was no longer just about him honoring her legacy, but about reclaiming his own. What if I don't do it well? He was desperate for her reassurance, his words tripping over themselves in the urgency of his anxious heart. Then you learn, you grow, you find your voice. A single moment of raw honesty may create ripples that challenge you into something greater. Her words wrapped around him like vines, nurturing budding conviction. He blended vibrant oranges into the depths of his dark blues, images of creativity harmonizing with his fears. With every stroke, he felt himself unearth emotions that had long been muted. But beneath that surge of resolve lay questions that gripped him tighter. What if his family, their expectations woven so deeply into the fabric of his identity, rejected this version of him? What if his authenticity pushed them away? And what then? Would this journey of self-exploration ultimately isolate him, shedding the very ties that held him together? Mark's brush faltered, splattering paint onto the floor as turmoil wrestled with clarity. He glanced at Charlotte, whose gaze offered no judgment, only understanding. "It's okay to feel that fear. It's part of the journey," she assured him softly. "Is it resilient to show this part of me? Or is it reckless?" he whispered, grappling with the stakes of his decision. "You'll never know how strong you can be if you don't test your boundaries. Embrace it, even if it feels uncomfortable. Growth requires risk." With newfound vigor, he turned back to the canvas, adrenaline surging through him. Each brushstroke became a bold decision, an assertion of who he could be if he let the world see beyond the surface. Yet, as he lost himself in the rhythm of creation, the haunting specter of his daughter's expectations nudged at his conscience. Would she recognize him? In that electric moment of hesitation, he realized that opening himself up meant not just confronting his fears, but also inspiring her own. Through his courage, she would learn what it means to stand firmly in her truth. He pushed the brush harder against the canvas, feeling the rhythm of his heartbeat sync with the vibrant colors erupting beneath his hand. But as the intensity swirled, the impending conversations after this uncovering loomed heavily in the background. Facing his truth meant he would soon have to hold discussions with his daughter, ones about loss, identity, and the bravery to be authentic even when it hurts. In that swirling chaos of hue and emotion, Mark realized the adventure he had embarked on had less to do with the colors on the canvas than with the transformative conversations waiting just beyond the wall he was beginning to dismantle. What awaited him on the other side of that wall remained daunting, but his pulse quickened with a sense of urgency. He needed to act before inspiration faded or fear tightened its grip again. A look at the stark, colorful energy of the canvas brought new urgency. The moment of truth was fast approaching. It filled him with anticipation and dread. Was he truly ready for what lay beneath the color? The canvas stood before Mark, the chaotic swirl of colors a testament to his internal riot. He stepped back, eyes scanning the vibrant chaos. It was a raw reflection of the turmoil he felt within, a struggle that would soon break free, spilling into conversations he had long avoided. But with each hesitation, the weight of potential rejection bore down on him. Could he bear the thought that those he cherished might not accept this new version of himself? He had come to view his art not merely as a personal expression, but as a gateway, a bridge that could close or open the distance between him and his daughter Emma. Would she find a source of strength in what he created, or would it serve as a reminder of everything he had been too afraid to confront? "Let's take a break." His voice was strained, barely above a whisper. Charlotte nodded, sensing his unrest. She stepped away, giving him space to breathe. The suffocating air thick with questions that begged for answers. Mark wiped his sweaty brow with the back of his hand, thoughts racing. The canvas was like a mirror, reflecting back his fears, aspirations, and the chilling possibility of failure. He couldn't ignore the pressing need to communicate with Emma, to show her that vulnerability was not a weakness, but a courageous choice. However, that very thought paralyzed him with doubt. Was he equipped to navigate the complexities that lay ahead, conversations about grief and the fight for authenticity in their lives? Would Emma see this exploration as a journey of shared healing, or would she interpret it as a vulnerability to exploit? His mind spun uncontrollably. He poured himself a glass of water to quell the rising tide of anxiety. Charlotte, who had been watching quietly, finally broke the silence. "This is not just about you, you know. It's about what lies beneath," she said gently. "How many times have you held back for fear of how others might react?" "Too many times." It struck him then, the weight of all the moments where fear kept him shackled. He settled onto a wooden stool beside the easel, reflecting on his own reactions to Emma's emerging identity and independence. How had he imposed his expectations upon her in the process of defining himself? Their mutual desire for connection, once buoyed by his protective instincts, had been smothered under layers of unvoiced anxieties. "Do you think she'll want to hear what I have to say?" The vulnerability in his voice caught him off guard. "What if she sees me as weak?" Charlotte moved closer, her eyes steady and unwavering. "If you're honest, she'll see strength. And more than that, you'll show her the reality of being human, the ability to struggle, to grow, and to change. That speaks volumes, Mark." His heart thudded as he grappled with her words. Could this really be the catalyst for both of their transformations? He stood, an unfamiliar determination coiling within him. His brush hovered over the canvas, the rush of creativity mingling with clarity. What would it mean to share his truths, not only through paint, but through open dialogues? He picked up a palette knife, carving shapes into the blend of colors, as though he were sculpting his narrative from the chaos. Charlotte watched, impressed. "See? You're already moving past the fear." "I need to talk to Emma," he declared, the decision rolling off his tongue like a wave cresting onto shore. Excitement battled against trepidation. "We'll share a moment, and I won't hide behind my fears anymore." Mark surged back to his canvas, each stroke an assertion of will. He was setting the stage for conversations that could redefine both father and daughter. Still, an alarming thought prowled in the back of his mind. What if this attempt to connect only tangled their paths further? He worked furiously, blending hues as if fusing their lives together with a deeper understanding. Each rapid stroke felt like a promise, a chance not only to reveal who he was, but to discover who Emma might become when met with genuine openness. Yet the looming question remained. How would she respond when faced with this raw, vulnerable man who stood before her? How much of his pain would he lay bare, and how much could she accept or understand? As the last streak of color settled into place, Mark lingered on the idea of their forthcoming conversation. The anticipation was electric, yet tinged with a deepening dread.
"Can you handle the truth?" he whispered to himself, even as he clung to the belief that they could emerge stronger together. But with every ripple of uncertainty that stirred, Mark knew the moment of truth was drawing closer. What awaited him in that conversation could either shatter their relationship or forge a new bond. Would he be able to articulate his fears, or would he retreat again into silence?
It was time to face the music, to confront both his past and Emma's expectations as he prepared to unveil his truth. The initial stroke of paint faded into the background as Mark's thoughts solidified into a single, unwavering resolve. He was ready to confront both his past and the ways he had shielded Emma from his vulnerability. Each layer of color on the canvas had spurred a revelation, revealing more than just an artist's path. They resonated with the unspoken dialogues waiting to be hashed out between father and daughter. "Tomorrow," he declared, a potent conviction reverberating through him. "Tomorrow I will talk to Emma. This isn't just about sharing art. It's about bridging the chasm that's formed between us." His voice rang through the quiet studio, infused with a lightness he hadn't felt in years. It was liberating, almost intoxicating, to commit to facing those fears head-on. Mark glanced at Charlotte, who nodded, her eyes sparkling with encouragement. "That's precisely what you need to do. You've already taken the first steps. Share your truth. It will empower hers." Although her words felt like a steady anchor in the storm of his internal monologue, doubt occasionally crept up on him like a shroud. What if he toppled under the weight of his own authenticity? Yet he would not let fear grip him. Instead, he felt fear transforming into excitement, propelling him towards this new chapter. It was the unfolding of his life, adorned with vibrancy, vulnerability, and authenticity. The afternoon sun poured through the studio windows, casting warm light upon his artwork. As he observed the chaotic yet beautiful aftermath of his artistic endeavor, new ideas flitted through his mind. It was not merely a piece of art. It was the beginning of a conversation that could alter the fabric of his relationship with Emma. Did they not deserve to connect deeply? While packing down the studio for the day, Mark made a conscious decision to cultivate an honest dialogue with Emma, to share both his fears and his dreams, lessons learned from navigating loss and finding a way to embrace joy amidst it. He could already envision sitting down with her, revealing both the artistry of Sophia and the struggle of the man he had become. As evening descended, he revisited not just the canvas, but the imprints of Sophia's laughter, the vibrance of her passion. This unveiling wouldn't simply spotlight her, it would illuminate the man she had inspired him to be. It was about championing authenticity, an air of bravery flowing through them like never before. The morning sun rose on their moment. Mark prepared breakfast, each sizzling sound resonating with an eagerness he hadn't felt in years. When Emma sauntered into the kitchen, still half asleep, he smiled. Her presence ignited memories of laughter that echoed through their home, though they had harbored more silence than joy recently. "Dad, did you sleep well?"
She yawned, blinking at him with a mixture of curiosity and concern.
"I did, sweetheart. I have something important to talk about," he said, steadying his resolve. The words came pouring out before his mind could sway. There was no turning back. As they settled around the table, Mark found his heart quickening with each barreling syllable. "I've been doing a lot of thinking about us and about the art I created." He gestured toward the studio as memories of his brush swirling through colors burgeoned through his mind, a symphony of emotion begging for expression. Emma's brow furrowed in intrigue. "Your art? What about it?" In that moment, Mark glimpsed the courage he had fought so hard to develop, an internal knowing that this was the path to freedom he had long sought.
I want you to see it, how it connects to your mom, to us. I realize I haven't been completely honest about how I've been feeling." As he spoke, revealing the very depths of his journey, the struggle that accompanied the loss of Sophia, and the ways he had obscured his creativity to shield her from pain, he felt Emma's gaze shift. There was surprise in her eyes interlaced with tenderness as she absorbed his words. "Dad, I wish you'd said something sooner," she said softly, reaching for his hand. "I just thought you were coping in your own way." "I was coping, but it held me back," he replied, fighting the wave of vulnerability pushing at the edges of his resolve. "Now, I want to share everything with you because you mean the world to me. I want you to embrace your own truth and see that being authentic is brave, even when it's complicated." The air thickened, filled with unspoken emotions, the weight of honesty adding gravity to their moment. And as Emma's expression morphed from surprise to understanding, Mark realized that they were forging a new path together, bridging the gap with every revelation. "Can I see your art now?" Emma asked, a flicker of excitement in her voice. "Yes," Mark responded, his heartbeat steadying. "Let's walk to the studio together." Within those steps toward creativity, a new connection formed. Layers of warmth, love, and shared spirit wrapped around them like a fragile cocoon. As he opened the studio door, Mark felt a wave of emotion swell within him. They were about to embark on a shared discovery that would weave their lives together anew. When they stood before the canvas, each brushstroke came alive. Emma gazed at the chaotic beauty, color erupting into emotion. "Dad, this is amazing!" she exclaimed, eyes illuminating the intricate dance of art and narrative. "How did you—" As he guided her through his artistic journey, weaving Sophia's memories and his own truth into the conversation, Mark understood that their lives would forever intertwine through this courageous exchange. "I struggled finding my voice too, you know," Emma said, the authenticity radiating from her words. "But promise me, Dad, that we will always talk about the hard stuff."
"I want us to be honest with each other." "I promise," he murmured, swept up in the transformative moment. They stood together in the studio, hearts open to possibility. Their connection deepened through vulnerability, a defined tether binding father and daughter in this brave new reality. Mark's gaze flickered lovingly at the piece of art, allowing him to break free from the ghosts of his past. In this awakening, he was grateful. He had taken a leap toward authenticity, finding growth not just in himself, but in the radiant path of love that had anchored him all along. Now, as they delved into conversations filled with shared truths and aspirations, Mark knew that he had conquered his fears. Ironclad bonds of love and communication had anchored this moment, a fulcrum of transformation that would usher them both into a world colored with comprehension, growth, and unwavering support. Mark smiled at Emma, a newfound realization illuminating his spirit. Together, they had crossed a threshold into a realm of understanding, and embracing that reality would forever redefine their journey together. Family, artistry, and healing, intertwining through love's enduring embrace. To those navigating similar paths, seeking inspiration through transformation and growth, Mark's story stands as a testament. Embrace authenticity, face your fears, and weave the art of life into connections meant to flourish. It's time to embrace your truth too. Make the decision to share this life-changing journey. You need to subscribe now to our channel to witness more exclusive emotional stories that inspire personal transformation. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Your support is essential in bringing this message to others. Comment below your thoughts on this journey and share it instantaneously with 5 friends who could use a boost of encouragement. Don't wait even one more second to spread the power of connection that can heal and inspire.